Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much. Welcome back to another session on the Caribbean, Declassified Caribbean News and Network channel. Tonight, we begin with a statement that has sent shockwaves across Britain, the Caribbean, and beyond. Former British Home Secretary and Member of Parliament, Suella Braverman, declared modern Britain or Britons should not be paying for the 18th century slave trade. If any former colonies should pay for it, not us, she's saying, not the other way around, because of the investment, effort, and contribution we made in laying the foundation for flourishing democracies. So what she's suggesting is that, Britain should not pay reparations. She's here saying that we are the ones in the Caribbean who should repay, and perhaps, in other areas of the world, in the United States, the people of African descent should repay Great Britain for slavery for it because they have given us democracies and freedom. What nonsense. Now, those remarks immediately ignited fierce criticism across the Caribbean, particularly from Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley, one of the region's strongest advocates for reparatory justice. Mottley rejected the suggestion that the former colonies owe Britain anything, arguing instead that the wealth generated through slavery and colonial exploitation come at an immeasurable, I should say, human and economic cost to the peoples of the Caribbean. But tonight, I want to connect the dots. If the legacy of slavery and colonialism remain one of the defining issues of Caribbean politics, what does that mean for the policies Caribbean governments are pursuing today? This brings us directly to Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley has been actively promoting stronger links with Africa, including initiatives to encourage African migration and labor recruitment to Barbados. Supporters see these efforts as strengthening historic ties and addressing labor shortages or labor needs. Others question what these policies could mean for Barbados' future demographics, economy, and national identity. Are these two debates connected? Can reparations, historical justice, and immigration policy be discussed separately, or are they part of the same broader conversation about the future of Caribbean societies? This evening or tonight, we examine Suella Braverman's controversial statements or remark, Mia Mottley's response, the historical context surrounding reparations, and Barbados' immigration policies. We will look at the evidence, consider the competing perspectives, and ask whether the Caribbean is entering a new chapter in its relationship with both Britain and Africa. As always, I invite you to join the discussion. Tell us where you're watching from, share your perspective respectfully, and let's examine these important issues together. Now, we're going to begin with Ms. Mia Mottley's retort, right? And her rebuttal of what this former MP of the British Parliament has said about us repaying Britain for what Britain did to Caribbean citizens. So let me share my screen at the moment and let's discuss and look at what Ms. Mia Mottley is saying and how she has rebutted very well and rightly so that statement. So she's pushing back against what was said by this former British MP. All right, so I'm going to put it up on the screen right now so you can see it, and then we
Thank you very much for the question. I'm not sure that you want me to reply to things that really are asinine, and certainly the notion that we should pay the United Kingdom for oppressing us, for enslaving us, and for treating us as chattel. And that is the difference. Slavery existed before, but this was the first time that human beings were defined as chattel. And I've been very clear all along that the 1661 Slave Code of Barbados, which predated the Code Noir, which the French have just repealed less than 2 months ago, all distinguished themselves, and all of the slave laws that followed the 1661 Slave Code of Barbados, by the treatment of human beings as chattel. We're not asking for charity. We're asking to be able to ensure that justice can be done. In 1834, the British Parliament did not need to be persuaded of that fact with respect to the loss of property because we were chattel and the compensation of the slave owners of 20 million pounds. I would like to advise that those who have not yet read sufficient to understand the history do so before making comments that really do not reflect well on them. With respect to the movement, this is a global movement now. We just came from Accra in Ghana, and as you know, the United Nations passed the resolution that Ghana brought in March of this year. We have seen Pope Leo make comments in this year of our Lord. We have seen President Macron recognize that the conversation for reparations, just as His Majesty King Charles, when he was Prince Charles at the opening of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda, stated clearly that reparations was a conversation whose time had come. I have no doubt that there are British parliamentarians who want to distract people from the domestic politics of the United Kingdom at this point in time. But the Caribbean should not be used as a prop in those circumstances. Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I'm not sure that you want me to reply to things that really are asinine, and certainly the notion.
Okay, so from from a from a superficial perspective, we agree with Miss Mia Mottley, right? We agree with her because the fact of the matter is, why should we be paying for something that the British caused, right? We did not invite Britain to Africa to have captured slaves. So why are they suggesting that we should pay them back? That is ludicrous. Now, she suggested it is an asinine statement that was made by this former MP. Another thing that she's highlighting is the fact that we also, after slavery, had to pay them for our liberty. So we actually paid them reparations years after slavery, you know, and I think that it stopped in 2018. I think that that was debate was ongoing in terms of we continue to pay them. I think the last payment was done sometime in the 2018 thereabout. So she's correct, and we should commend her for what she's saying. But when she now started to talk about, you know, King Charles III suggesting that he's on board with reparation, we know that that cannot be true. King Charles is not going to be on board with reparations for Black people. That is not going to happen. Obviously, he's on board with the climate change agenda, which Ms. Mia Mottley is also aligned with, and that is why she cited him. Not that he is willing to give Black people and pay them for the cheap labor and the fact that we paid them after slavery for reparations because of the fact that they lost their plantations. Now, we are looking tonight at the fact that Ms. Mia Mottley wants to have connection. She wants to have an alliance, as it were, with Africa to import, you know, workers from Africa to Barbados. In fact, she says that Africa and the Caribbean are one. Are we really one? Are we Africans, or are we largely of African descent? The two are distinct, right? To be African means that you share a cultural heritage, right? The language, you know, religion, you know, foods, etc. that people do. Now, there's a distinct difference between being a person and being of. We can also talk about those of us who have traveled and we have children in the United States. We have children in Great Britain. They are of Trinidadian descent, but they are British primarily, or they're American primarily, but they share a connection with the homeland through their parents. It does not mean, therefore, that the children are necessarily going to connect with their homeland. Some of them do, some of them don't, depending on how they're raised. So we have to be very careful about when we say that we are holistically African. But I want you to listen to the agenda, and I think Ms. Mia Mottley is sharing the agenda of why she is trying to connect Africa with Barbados and with the Caribbean in general. So let me just share this with you. I think this was what I have. So please bear with me. I'm going to share this with you now and listen to what Ms. Mia Mottley is saying, because we have to listen to her first. We can't begin now to attack her. We need to look at the agenda. Why are they actually planning this at this moment, at this time of our history? All right, so let me put her on the screen. and turn up the volume. Is it on the screen? Add to stage, and then she's on, right. So let us now get the video that is here. Is it this one that I was looking at? No, it's not. It's not this one. It's this one. Okay, this is the one.
That the conversation about immigration and migration is rooted in rather than rooted in the needs of a country. I think that people are fearful of becoming a minority in their own country, and that's natural. You can't think that. But at the same time, without the influx of people, you're not going to be able to stabilize or get the growth that you need as a country. And one of the problems is that in the world, we have worked out how to move money. Nobody worries about how to move money globally. But as soon as you start talking about moving people, everybody gets nervous. And in December 2018, I think, at the OACP, Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States in Nairobi, I made the point, and I continue to make it, that we need a proper deal for migrants. And this notion of people having to drown just because they want a better life when countries elsewhere actually need them and can provide opportunity and dignity to them, something is fundamentally wrong. And regrettably, that's one of the things that I can say we unfair in people.
Okay, so we're seeing here where she's suggesting that people are afraid that they might be the minority in their countries, and she's also suggesting that in order for the Caribbean economies to grow, that they will have to invite people from abroad. And Dr. Andrew Holness did say likewise. He said that the Caribbean used to export its skills, but now in this century, the Caribbean is looking to import skills from abroad. So they're saying both Dr. Andrew Holness and Ms. Mia Mottley agree that in order to grow an economy, we have to import skills from abroad, primarily from Africa. Now, what is the agenda, and why do we have to grow our economies by importing all of these laborers when they're telling us, particularly in Jamaica, that 80% of our skilled and educated labor force go abroad because they can't afford living in their respective countries. They lack opportunities. Now, if these people who are highly trained are leaving, why are they now justifying to us that they have to go now and recruit people from abroad, primarily from Africa? These are the questions that we should be posing to our prime ministers and our leaders or MPs and so forth in the Caribbean. Now, we're going to look at some other statements that she's making. Let me get about the Africa and the Caribbean. And let's now make the connection, because these things I'm helping us to make the connections and to connect the dots, because that is what we're here for. I know it takes some time. We don't like to think to connect the dots, but we have to, as much as possible, do that, because that is how we are going to be able to think and to decipher what is happening in the Caribbean region. Okay, so let me put her now on the screen, and we are going to turn up the volume so you can hear what she's saying. Please share the live so that more people can come on the platform, because this is a very important discussion that we're having, and it is going to be quite intellectually charged. Okay, so okay, so that's interesting. So she's saying that Africa and the Caribbean are always linked. But are we really linked? Are we linked culturally? Are we linked economically? Are we linked politically? We have to look at these things. And I don't think that we're having enough serious debates as far as that is concerned. We look at the color of people's skin, and we think that because of the color of one's skin, it means therefore that we are relatives and we're related and that we see eye to eye. And that doesn't work. In the same manner, I've told you that when you look at Europe, right, the British and the Germans are not the same. The Russians and the Germans are not the same. They share a skin hue, right? A skin tone, but that does not mean, therefore, that they are the same culturally. And I think that when we have this conversation around what we call Black people, we are of the impression taught to us in the school system that has really indoctrinated us that we are all alike. And we are not. And why don't we grow up, ladies and gentlemen? Because when we look at the Caribbean region, we have Barbados, we have Jamaica, we have Trinidad and Tobago, right? Guyana, all of these other Caribbean territories, many of us in the Anglo-speaking countries speak the same language, but are we all the same? No, we are not all the same. We have similarities, but we also have some very deep cultural differences. And if we do not acknowledge these things, it means, therefore, that we cannot move forward and our politicians are going to deceive us like the likes of Miss Mia Mottley, because already she is going to definitely get the sympathies of many Caribbean people because she's saying and she's preaching the same doctrine, the same quasi-religious doctrine as we're hearing it at our universities, that we're all Black, so we're the same, and we're coming from the same ancestors, and all of these simplistic arguments that they're presenting to us, which are not totally true. True to an extent, but not simplistically true the way in which they are actually describing it. I want you to listen to this video too of a Nigerian woman who was asked in Barbados, what's the difference between you and the Barbadians? And I want you to listen to what she has to say, right? The difference between Barbadians and Nigerians. She was asked that question, and I like the fact that she was, directly asked that question. So let me share this with you. Nigerian, honest Nigerian. Yes, I'm going to put it up on the screen right now, and you're going to see what she is saying, the difference between a Nigerian
in common with Bajan people and Nigerian people?
The color.
Just the color. No, what about the attitude? No?
Bajan people have their own attitude. Our culture, their culture is not the same. There are some things that Bajan people will do that we Africans can't do.
Like, give me an example.
Actually, I would say when it comes to training their children. Like in Africa, they say it takes a village to train a child. But in Barbados, sometimes when you try to talk to somebody's child, you are getting a problem with the parent, because the parent is not liking that you are correcting their child.
You have Bajan children? Or
My mother is born here, she's a Barbadian.
What's the number one quality you want to instill in her as she grows to be a woman?
And first of all, she has to fear God. That's the number one thing that I'm trying to put in her. Because right now in this generation, the young ones need God in them. They're lacking God.
Okay, interesting, right? Interesting perspective by this Nigerian woman. But two things that are noted what she's saying. She says when she was asked, how are Nigerians similar to Barbadians? And she said, just the color. Right? That's what she said. She was very, very honest by suggesting that the link would be the color. But when she looks, because she lives in Barbados now, but when she looks at the society in general, of course, she did not unmask a lot of other things, but she was quite clear that differences lies beneath the skin color. And that is what we have to understand. We can't just pick somebody up and say that we're throwing them into a culture because that person has a similar skin hue, skin tone. That is not how culture works. And many of our politicians need to learn language and culture, because in the Caribbean here, we lack that sensitivity. And it's because we have not placed a lot of emphasis on that in our education system. So we think that culture is just something that is simple, and we can override that. And we're all similar. The fact that we're speaking the same language, we look the same physically, but it does not mean, therefore, that we are all the same. Okay? Now, let's look at another video clip of Miss Mia Mottley and the fact in which she's suggesting that Africa and the Caribbean are one, because we want to, hear them speak. I'm not going to make now claims that they are not saying. Our purpose here is to show you that these people are serious, right? And they're serious about their agenda, irrespective of what we think. They are pushing ahead with that agenda. All right, so let's look at what she's saying here. I think this is what I wanted. So let me go back and see if this is here. Yeah, so I'm going to put this now and tell Miss Mia Mottley, speaking again, that all of us from the Caribbean and Africa, we are one people. All right, so let me turn the volume up. And are you seeing it? Can you see it on the screen? Is it on the screen? Oh, let's add to the stage, sorry. Sometimes it's weird. Yeah, be patient with me. Sometimes you think that things must just go. I'm the one doing everything here.
For enslaving us and for treating us as chattel. And that is the difference. Slavery existed before, but this was the first time that human beings were defined as chattel. And I've been very clear all along that the 1661 Slave Code of Barbados, which predated the Code Noir, which the French have just repealed less than 2 months ago, all distinguished themselves and all of the slave laws that followed the 1661 Slave Code of Barbados by the treatment of human beings as chattel. We're not asking for charity. We're asking to be able to ensure that justice can be done. In 1834,
okay, I think I showed this already. I beg your pardon. Let me put up another video. Sorry, I think I might have shown this already. Let me put up the one that I wanted to show you. So let's go back where she's saying that we are all one. Mia Mottley says Caribbean. Yes, this is what I have here. So let me put it on the screen. Wow, sorry about that. Sometimes.
And buffeted by the dreams and works of the great Pan-African pioneers, and conscious that as a children of the Caribbean, we have long dreamt for the moment of unity with our brothers and sisters of Africa, a division that was secured by those whose success and survival depended on separation of us rather than on the ability for us to act as one common people. Our relationship, you can say, was embryonic. But regrettably, as long as it has been and as related as we have been, it has been sporadic. And it is up to us, as the children of independent states, to determine whether the history of separation shall be our future, or whether the spirit of Adwa can be our inspiration to confront the challenges of a new world. Yes, I stand here as a daughter of Africa. I stand here equally as a proud Prime Minister of Barbados, a country which is the first landmass that you reach after you leave this great continent of Africa. A country which became a hub for the wrong reasons, but today I come to Ethiopia to share with you in the Africa Union that we can be a hub now for the right reasons between our two peoples.
Yes. So what she's saying is that we are one, right? And that is what the academy is saying also. It's not only Miss Mia Mottley saying that, but if you go to universities and you read the journals, that is what they're saying. Africa is almost like it's a country and not a continent. And when we look at Asia, for example, we see the Chinese, we see the Vietnamese, we see the Japanese. Are they all one? Are they one people? Because they have some similar features does not necessarily mean that they're one people, and they don't regard themselves as one people. Now, one of the things that we must understand, slavery did unite us around that sort of cause. So we were coming mainly from Africa and we were enslaved. So the fact of the matter, we had a similar, what you say now, connection then, slavery. But if you look around now, when you look at classism, a lot of our Black people behave as if they are not connecting to people who they've left behind. The same thing is happening in the United States. Right now, after the integration movement in the United States, Black people moved on, right? And some who are in the upper middle class society pretend as if they are no longer a part of the struggle. And the same thing is happening right now. And that's why yesterday we talked about the differences between Afro-Caribbeans and Africans living in the UK. And they all don't see things through a similar light. Why? Because they're culturally different, right? And nothing is wrong with that. Differences don't mean that we don't like each other. What differences mean is that we should learn to respect each other. Right? It does mean, therefore, that we can't come together around fighting for a common cause. So the Trinidadians and Jamaicans and Barbadians and all of us in the Caribbean can unite against a certain level of injustice in the region, but it does mean, therefore, that we are the same, right? Because we have cultural and economic differences. Let us see what you're saying now. Welcome to the live. Yes, we have WHZ tells me he was the first one. We're going to be looking at many other things tonight, so make sure that you're sharing the live. We're one people, but with cultural differences, behavioral difference, right? And I think that the human family really is one family because we're humans, but we have differences in terms of cultural norms and perspectives. Right? And that's what the world should realize. They want to put us into this one world government, right? And they understand that they can't just do it because we have our cultural differences, you know, and that is what makes us distinctively Nigerian from Ghanaian, from Jamaican, from Trinidadian. We're different culturally and linguistically in some ways, right? The foods that we like to eat, etc., etc., etc. Now, who is somebody, then we have here, Mottley always have good speeches. Now, what is the speeches that she's suggesting? How is that speech helping to liberate us? And that is what we're saying now, Darth Vader, that yes, she has good speeches with good rhetoric, but how is that helping the Caribbean to empower us and to align with the realities that we face? She's not. She's fully on board with a global agenda that has nothing to do with the Caribbean and how we live in the region. Right? But yes, she does make good points sometimes. It's just that she's connected to people that are not necessarily our friends. Okay? Now, somebody's saying effects of chattel slavery and colonialism is what caused us to be different. No, there have always been differences, right? There have always been differences in Africa, as far as we know. The fact of the matter is that the differences did not cause world wars. That we can say that they were not as warmongering as the Europeans, but there were differences in terms of how they looked at the world, because again, Africa is a continent just like Asia is, just like Europe is. It's a continent, it's not a country, so they're not going to be united. By the way, are we united even in our own countries? Are we all united in Jamaica, in Trinidad, in Barbados, in Antigua and Barbuda, and Guyana? Are we all united? No. We're just not united, right? In the United States, in Great Britain, all around, people are not united even within their own border, even under their own national identity. They're not united. You will never have united people because we just have differences in terms of our experiences, differences in terms of how we view the world. Now, Mandingo is saying South Africa putting out Africans every Thursday. Right. And, South Africa, we know, is run and managed by white people. The white South Africans are the ones who are there, and they're actually doing everything they can to get rid of Black people, as it were. So there are many different agendas. Now, we hope what Ms. Mia Mottley is trying to do is to, unite us around fighting global or globalist agendas. But that is not what she's doing, right? That is not what she's going to do. And I'm going to have you watch a video right now, move you into that video of this young man, right, from Barbados, who is giving us a little view, right, into what this agenda really is, right? Because this is a very serious agenda. Many of us are going to be without work because they're telling us that we are now having to import workers into our own respective countries. Many people don't understand what that portends, and they're just thinking that life is going to be as usual when it is not. Okay, now let me just get what he's saying here, put it up on the screen. And very hard for us to think in the Caribbean. I'm not sure what's going to happen for us to wake up, but it's going to, I will have to continue to do it until you wake up. Maybe you won't. So let's look at that, the honest Nigerian opinion. Yeah, so let us look at that, the agenda. Let me put it up on the screen and we will discuss.
King of Kings.
Oh,
I am here today.
Oh, wow.
The first mass immigration movement where Barbadians left Barbados and went to Africa and settled in a country called Liberia. Now this was opened by the Prime Minister of Barbados in collaboration with the former president of Liberia. Now let me bring some things to your attention quickly about Barbados, Africa, the Caribbean, and the African Exim Bank. Let me say quickly, this is not a video of hate, this is a video of education. Now we have it so good in Barbados and the Caribbean that the Chinese, the Europeans, the Africans, the Arabs are all coming in to the Caribbean and buying up plantations, beaches, the coastal lands, they're buying up hotels, ports, airports, and they're moving into the Caribbean, but they're encouraging you to move out. As we can see here, history repeating itself.
Please like the live
now,
and share the live with that people can join us
is being set up to push Barbados and the Caribbean from the SWIFT system, which is the US-based system, onto the PAP system, which is the Pan-African payment system. And many Bajans don't realize the power that this small country has in world affairs because of our passport strength, which is visa-free travel to most countries in the world. And the value of the Barbados exchange rate, which is 2-to-1, and the IMF has been trying to get us to devalue this 2-to-1 peg since the 1990s. Now Barbados has a much stronger exchange rate and a much stronger and more credible passport than any African country you can name. And many African passports are heavily scrutinized in world affairs, especially by the United States. Now the exchange rates in countries that I specifically chose are Nigeria, which is $1,539 to $1 US, Ghana, $10 to $1 US, Ethiopia, $138 to $1 US, Egypt, $50 to $1 US, and Kenya, $129 to $1 US. Barbados is much substantially higher than that. Now, all of the other G8 big countries in the world with high value currencies are backed by military complexes and military industries and the armies. So, just in case you wanted to invade one of these big countries, you would think twice because they're not easy to take over because they're backed by strong military. So, the British, the Chinese, the European countries, the Japanese, etc. And all of the other smaller countries with high value dollars are still colonies of bigger countries or independent countries which are still under G8 control. So Barbados went to a republic, and therefore the British Army would no longer come to our aid if we were to be invaded by another country. So right now Barbados is a weak link with a high value currency. So what's the goal here? The goal here is for Barbados to be used as a digital money hub, to facilitate trade and transactions, to supply the African region with goods and services because of the strength of our dollar. Not necessarily that we be benefiting from the trade and the goods and services, but we be paid a little something to facilitate the transactions. Now, the more Barbados dollars accumulated by members from the African region, they can be converted to extremely lucrative financial opportunities for members of the African region due to our exchange rates whenever they do choose to return back to the African region from Barbados. And the earning potential in Africa for a Caribbean migrant seeking a job opportunity paid in local African currency is in no way or anywhere considered to be an equal trade-off for a person leaving Barbados, especially to head to the African region to look for a job. So I hope this video was eye-opening. As we say, if you don't know history, you're very doomed to repeat it. Yes.
I think that that is an extremely intelligent, discussion by that young man. And, not many people in the Caribbean, including at the university level, can think in that way. Those sentiments were profound. And when I listened to him, I think that he's rare in the Caribbean in terms of how he broke it down. Now, the fact of the matter is that when you look at the whole scenario of what these Nigerians who will be going to Barbados, they're not poor Nigerians, That's what we have to understand too. These are not poor people who are coming to Barbados. These are very wealthy, middle class, Nigerians who will be going there. And in some cases will displace lots of Barbadians in terms of their monetary wealth and well-being. Okay, so often we think that only Europeans who are wealthy, but our own black people, when they're wealthy, they can be arrogant too, and they will take over, and that is what we have to understand. Thank you so much for joining. Trevor was wondering where you were. Yes, he's correct. And I thought that was an intelligent breakdown of what really is happening, coming from a young man of his standard, his ilk. Now, could never be a fair negotiation. Yeah, it's not going to be fair. It's not going to be fair. Most people don't care, right? They don't understand, and they don't want to understand. I think that's what Trevor, they don't understand, neither do they want to understand. When somebody breaks this down to them, it's beyond their ken to understand it, right? But they just move on because it doesn't bother them until they don't have anything to eat. Now, further displacement. It is further displacement, right? Good evening. And I want you now, good evening. I want you to look now at another perspective coming from Nigerian, and who is in Barbados, by the way, right now as we speak. And he's going to be talking about what he's seeing in Barbados, and he's most happy with being there and being able to take advantage of the advantages. Well, advantage of the wonderful things in Barbados. Let me get to that honest opinion on differences. Jamaica, let me get to the Nigerian African experience. Right, so I'm gonna put this on the screen now. And then I'll have you listen to that.
Next slide. For those of you asking me, Son John, how do I get to Barbados? How to get a Barbados visa? Let me tell you something. Barbados offers visa-free entry for most African citizens, including Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and many more. Let me tell you, Air Peace now operate direct flight from Nigeria to Barbados. If I were you, I would be dancing. I would do some chocolate cake. You can get Barbados residency through investment. And the best way to do that is to contact Zen Realty. Guys, listen. I feel like I'm in my mother's country, bro. I'm at home. I feel like home, man. Barbados is gorgeous. Barbados is gorgeous. If you are looking for where to protect your money, come to Barbados. Everybody here looks like me. I see myself in everyone. What's going on? You see my brother here? This is my brother. Look at him. He looks like me, bro. You look like my twin brother. What's going on? Listen, he's the CEO of Zen Realty. He's actually the reason why I'm here. You guys should give it to him. He's number one. If you're coming to Barbados, you want to put your money and get value for your money, this guy got you here. Number one, Barbados is growing so fast, and I want you to follow the transition. The kind of people this place receive every month, man. If you have any property here, man, you will never be poor again. This is number one. Thank you, Brother Ali. I appreciate it. Thank you for what you do for the community. We love you. This is my brother. Number one, Barbados is on. What's going on?
Now, I'm happy that you asked me to do this topic tonight, because when I was researching the topic, there are lots of videos online in which Africans are telling, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from all over Africa, they're telling people that they need to go to Barbados and they don't have to have passports. And they're going to now be direct flights from Africa right to Barbados. Before, they had to go through the UK or other, third country to be able to get to Barbados. But now they're suggesting that there will be direct flights, and you don't have to have passports, you don't have to have a visa. They will be able to move through. Now, I hope that this week, if depending on the interest in this topic tonight, that we will be able to look in another program on Agenda 2030, right? And the agenda in terms of immigration and moving from one country to another. And this is something that it seems that they're removing barriers, right? But they're removing barriers from the people who they like, right? The ones who they don't like. So this is selective. This is selective immigration. So of course, Barbados is not going to ask any poor Nigerian or any poor person from the Congo to go there. They will have to have some amount of resources, perhaps richer than the ordinary Barbadian. And the Barbadian is going to realize that the same African that they think is the brother might be someone who's coming there to actually take advantage of you, right? And so I'm not suggesting that they are. So let's be clear on that. But we have to be very careful of this agenda, because it obviously is not in our interest. Okay, get this thing off my screen. But there is an article here that was written. Wholeness from Jamaica says Jamaica must move from exporting talent to attracting it. And this was written on June 19th, 2026. So Wholeness is saying that Jamaica needs to now move into attracting what we call as known as visitors, and I'm going to put the article up so you can see, because I want you to see the evidence, the sources I'm reading, that you can check them for yourselves, because we need to think and we need to study. All right, so I'm going to put this up on the screen. Let me go ahead and get it up on the screen for you, and we're going to read together, right? Because that is what we're doing in this broadcast. We want to get you to be acquainted with enough knowledge so that you can think, because people in our time just can't think. And that is a very sad problem we have throughout the world, not only the Caribbean, but throughout the world. Let me see if I can make it bigger, the font bigger, so maybe if you're not seeing it well, you can see it better. Okay? Now this is what it's saying. It's saying exporting talent to attracting it, right? So St. James, Jamaica, Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness, I might have to put down the font because it's blocking my vision right here. All right, so I might have to lower it right. Okay, so Prime Minister Andrew Holness, Dr. Andrew Holness, says Jamaica must reposition itself from being an exporter of talent to becoming a destination that attracts and retains skilled workers if the country is to achieve sustained economic growth. So who said that too? Miss Mia Mottley said it on that Noah Guys program. She said that in order for Barbados to grow, they will have to now start importing workers, skilled workers, right? Now, addressing the 25th anniversary gala of Rio Hotels and Resorts in Montego Bay on Thursday night, Holness argued that the global competition for talent has become one of the defining challenges of the modern era, surpassing even the race for investment and natural resources. So it's even surpassing the race for investment and natural resources. Interesting. And I quote here from Dr. Andrew Holness: countries are competing for visitors. Countries are competing for investments. They are competing for businesses. But you know what else they're competing for? They are competing for talent. That, in fact, is the biggest competition, Holness told guests. The Prime Minister noted that while Jamaica has historically supplied skilled workers to overseas markets, and maybe I could put in Barbados, Trinidad, and other Caribbean countries, the country must now seek to attract talent from abroad while creating opportunities that encourage Jamaicans to remain at home. Jamaica must position itself not only as a net exporter of talent, which we have been for almost 200 years, but we need to now position ourselves to be receivers of talent into our economy if our economy is to grow and expand, right? So they're telling us now that if we want to grow, if we want to grow the economy, we've got to begin to import skilled workers. So you can't say nay to that. If you want your economy to grow, you must agree with them. Now, WHZ is saying if the SWIFT system is being disadvantageous to us, we have to be careful with the African PAPs also. Well, they are part of the Swiss program, and that's the whole point, WHZ, that the African countries are part of the same infrastructure, financial infrastructure. The African countries are a part of the same financial, right, Western financial system. Maybe you can argue that maybe the likes of the states there, Niger and Burkina Faso, what we call them the Sahel states. Perhaps the Sahel states know, and you can argue, I don't know, but maybe we can argue that they perhaps are not a part of that agenda. But the fact is, most African countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and all of them, Kenya, they're all a part of that Western financial infrastructure ecosystem. Now, Trevor is saying property for wealthy foreigners and go back home kings and queens, even some who came in dirt poor. Correct. They're not going to take, as we're saying, Trevor, they're not taking, any what we call now poor people. They're taking in the wealthy. And don't think because they're Africans, they're going to treat you like you're their brothers and sisters. They're not going to do that if things change. Now, we have Z saying the biggest issue with this is the potential health threats. When trips to Barbados came through the UK, that was a buffer. Example, Ebola was intercepted by a country, UK, that was able to do so. And it's a very good point you're raising here, Z, that it is possible that we could have health threats too. Okay, and again, our cultures differ and health practices, differ from one culture to the next. What about the whole matter of crime and violence too? Okay, we don't know if some of these people, what they're linked up with, how they became wealthy. We don't know. And what effect will that bring to the Caribbean in terms of, increasing the levels of crime and violence. There is a lot of that has been written and sometimes rumored about the Chinese and how they are involved in different, criminal networks in the Caribbean, and how that too, even though it's very mom in the Caribbean, people don't talk about it because we just look at investments as something that is, clean, and these are business people and they have their shops and they have their stores, but we don't know what they are connected with. And we're seeing now that the crime element is a problem. But, the news media help us to think that we are the problem, right? And not the people who are coming in. Some of them, I'm not saying all of them now, particularly the big wigs. We think the big wigs are educated and they're investing in hospitals and they're investing in this and they're investing in that. At the same time, they are also interconnected. They are linked up with the criminal network system. Then we have here, David is saying, Freighter, good evening, everyone on this platform. Good evening, haven't seen you for a long time. Some of you, I haven't seen you for a long, long time. And then we have Z said, Barbados is very inconsistent in maintaining standards. I thought they were more consistent than Jamaica, than many other Caribbean territories. And Z saying, the fact that a Barbadian politician declares that the country must import talent means that 60 billion investment in education did not work. It perhaps worked, for the Barbadian people, but it's not working for them, the globalists. But yes, it worked for Barbadian people, but they're now gaslighting the Barbadian people by telling them that, you need more skills. You need other skills. You're not prepared for the 21st century. Right? That's what they're gaslighting us with now. And in order for us to grow, we have to take nurses and doctors from the from other parts of the world, including Africa. I want to listen to this video, and it was done by a nurse in Jamaica, and she actually stood up to the Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness. I was shocked when she did that in front. She challenged him on the nonsense that he was saying in a meeting that he was in with the nurses in Jamaica about, importing about 400 African nurses and doctors to that country. Now, let me show you what she's saying here, and listen to how we need as well to be brave citizens and to challenge the powers that be, which many of us don't like to do because we find them to be or say masters.
Of healthcare
She's
professionals.
nice. Mia Mottley's
We've
nice.
reset.
We have never had enough, sir, and that is a reality.
Yeah.
Time gone by, it would have been because we didn't train enough. Then we were training enough, but we're not paying enough, so people were leaving. And people are still leaving. Because I would have articulated in the local space that people don't leave for money only. People leave for opportunities.
Yeah.
And people leave for some basic things, sir. People leave. I have a child who is special needs. Jamaica can't help me. So I have to go to a country where I can work and send my child into a space that I know they are cared for and protected professionally. Jamaica doesn't offer that. So there are some things. I have my elderly parents who need additional health needs. They can't get that here.
Yes. Right. So this is what he's coming in with, his preconceived ideas, with information that they've given to him, the theory that, the Caribbean doesn't have enough of these professionals, and perhaps in some areas we might not have. But why haven't we been training them? Why haven't we been? What am I saying now? Why haven't we trained them? Why haven't we trained the people in these specialized fields all over the years? And we've been saying that for a very, very long time. Why? Because we don't want to do it, and they want to carry on with the agenda. Another thing is that 70 to 80% of university graduates leave the Caribbean, particularly Jamaica, every year. So she's saying that they're not just leaving for money, they're leaving because of the lack of opportunities. In some cases, it's the fact that the countries are unsafe. Another time, the country might not have the opportunity of educating their children who might be autistic, who might suffer from a disability. Right? I have seen Jamaicans who have gotten up and they've gone to Canada because, they were living well there, but their children had special needs, and Jamaica didn't have the facility and the support that they needed for that. We're not talking about these things, right? We'd rather go to Africa and say, well, we don't have enough nurses and doctors, specialized enough specialists, so we have to go there, and they gaslight our people. They don't have a conversation, and at least this lady was brave enough to open up that conversation with Andrew Holness by saying, no. Yes, it is true that we have deficiencies and shortages in some areas, but that is not the full argument. That is not the entire story. But they don't want to tell us the entire story. And notice how they're just moving ahead without our input for us to have an open conversation, and also a very honest one too, because it will become notice how he was uncomfortable. Andrew Holness was uncomfortable with the reality that, because he wanted her to move with his narrative, that the only reason why he's going abroad to import so many nurses into Jamaica from Africa is because we have severe shortages. But that is not the entire story. And I'm happy that she stood up to him and told him that there are other things that he need to be aware of. Now, they have been planning this thing for a very, very long time. We were the ones who were not following what they were doing, because we're caught up within our own lives. People are suffering, and they don't have time to really keep abreast with everything that is happening in the region, the Caribbean. So in the Gleaner here, they say Tufton, and this is from 2025. Tufton sounds alarm. And Tufton, for those of you who don't know, he is the Minister of Health in Jamaica. Tufton sounds alarm on Caribbean healthcare crisis. So they're saying that there's a crisis and they have to go to Africa to sort of, put a dent in that crisis. Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, has issued a strong call for greater regional cooperation to address a growing healthcare workforce shortage that threatens to undermine health systems across Latin America and the Caribbean. Speaking to the 62nd Directing Council of the Pan-American Health Organization, that's the PAHO, on September 29, Tufton cited projections warning that the region could face a shortfall of 600,000 healthcare professionals by 2030 if current trends persist. Now, look at what they're saying, 2030. So you can see that the Agenda 2030 is what they're working towards. everything that they say, you've got to parse every word along with the New World Order agenda. And if you're not aware of the New World Order agenda, you've got to wake up. Because things are going to change just like the pandemic came upon us unawares. Many things are going to come upon us unawares, and we are going to be shocked at what our governments are going to do to us. Now, there is another video clipping that I'd like you to see, and something that we should be also discussing. I'm going to come to your chat, to the chat very soon, but I just wanted to get these things out of the way for you to think, right? Because this is the thinking channel, and no matter what they're doing, we are going to continue. Look at this. Look at what we're saying here. You know, because many things are happening in the Caribbean, and we have to wake up. We have to wake up. Okay, have to wake up. Let me add to the stage.
What we continue with is the state of affairs in Jamaica as it is currently, the political climate, and how.
Can you hear it?
It is day-to-day living in Jamaica.
I'm very concerned on multiple levels because I'm uncomfortable with what I see around me. For example, I'm in health. The health sector is in a very, 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 very bad way. It is worse than many people.
Let me know if you can hear it, guys. Can you hear it?
If you've never had to go to a public hospital or had a family member go there, you probably are unaware. I haven't seen data for this year. I can tell you up to last year, our maternal mortality rate was higher than in the 80s. If you went to the Michael Jackson movie?
Not as yet.
You see when Michael Jackson did Bad, the album? Yeah, our maternal mortality rate was lower than it is now. In other words, a pregnant woman up to last year was more likely to die than a pregnant woman in the late.
Explain how.
When things are not in a good state, people tend to lay the blame squarely on the governing party. It's not the governing party's fault alone why things are this bad. This has been going on for years. Our health sector has been in a bad way for years. But I'm not convinced at the same time that there has been much improvement under the administration now. Which does not mean that if the other party had won, it would have been any better. Let me say that very clearly. Bustamante Hospital is the only children's hospital in the English-speaking Caribbean. Do you know how many CT machines Bustamante has?
I'm going to really hope and pray we have at least one.
None. They've never had a CT machine. Kingston Public Hospital is the largest Type A public hospital in this country. So Type A means you cover all specialties. And KPH deals with a lot of trauma. Because we have a lot of violence here. So gunshot wounds, stab wounds, motor vehicle accidents, etc. All right, you know how many MRI machines KPH has?
I'm going to beg and plead that you tell me they have at least one.
None. For years.
You know,
no public hospital in this country has a functioning MRI machine. And what bothers me is not just the absence of it, but the disingenuity of those in charge.
Okay, so that is something rather interesting, right? That a country that prides itself as, having a great macroeconomic stability and how they're having a great, they've passed all IMF tests, and yet still we don't have CAT scans for two of our major hospitals. The Kingston Public Hospital in Kingston is perhaps the oldest public hospital in the Caribbean region, I think, right? And it does not have very basic equipment. Now, when I speak to Jamaicans, they will tell me that the country has moved on, right? And we have improved from when we were small. He's suggesting that in the 80s, the maternal rate there, the survival rate of mothers having their children, was much lower than it is now. It means, therefore, that we have actually regressed. We're not moving forward. People just like to look at superficial stuff of some cars on the roads, right? And the people making some big houses. They don't know how they got the money to build these big houses, these mansions, but they don't care. It's all about the superficial stuff that we're concerned about. Now, Z saying the fact that a Barbadian politician declares that the country must import talent means that the 60 billion investment in education did not work. And I said, yes, that it did work, but not definite enough for the people. Z saying that's a serious indictment on the politicians themselves. It is. But the fact is, remember, the politicians are not working for us. They're working for the global system, their global masters, the IMF, the World Bank, right? And all of these multilateral institutions, You are not going to get your politicians to turn the other way, to turn the other cheek, because they're not working for you. They're not working for you. And I've been saying that for such a long time, but you go and you have heard the other screams from the other, podcasters who believe that Miss Mia Mottley is going to change things, or if Miss Mia Mottley leaves tomorrow, Barbados is going to be better. It's not going to be better, because any prime minister that comes in now, whether from the left or right, will have to pursue that similar path that Miss Mottley is currently on. If you notice and you compare Andrew Holness and Miss Mia Mottley, and I see Jamaicans saying, oh, why doesn't Andrew Holness, just give up his office and make Miss Mia Mottley become Prime Minister of Jamaica? Because they don't have a clue that both of them are similar, right? They have different personalities, but they are pursuing the same agendas. But they can't see that because they can't think. Now, we have Trevor saying Barbados maintains nothing. That's why it's chaotic and lacks solid progression. And if Barbados is chaotic, what is Jamaica? Jamaica is probably, there's no country there, because I'm sure Barbados still has some amount of order. Then we have Darth Vader says, I doubt very much that the African upper class will bring diseases to the Caribbean. Now, one of the things that we have to understand, the African upper classes, you're thinking that this is just a clean agenda where they're just going. What if they are a part of the agenda to spread that disease? Yes, they will. All right. We're not living in normal times, people, and we don't think that this world is treading in the way that we think. The leaders are indoctrinated or brainwashed into doing some things, and some of what, and the pandemic should tell us that they will do it. They are not incapable. They are not incapable of engineering diseases. They are just not. And you've got to wake up now. And many of you are still fast asleep. Can't do anything to wake you up. Diseases come with poverty. Oh, well, who created the pandemic? Who created the pandemic? The poor people created the pandemic? Or was it, okay, you know who, right? We do not understand how things work. Now, we have WHZ saying, we know that the drugs and guns are not being produced by any black nation, still security is uppermost. Yes, they're not produced by black countries, but black people are also involved in the trade thereof, right? So we have to make that distinction that no, they're not. Just like how slavery was not, made by black people, but some blacks participated in the trade, okay? So we've got to make those two distinctions. It doesn't mean that black people are innocent. It means, therefore, if you are involved in the trafficking of arms and humans, you are just as guilty as the people who, engineered it. WHZ saying, because the black people are used as the mules in many instances. Some of them are used as mules, and some of them are also are very high up in the echelon of how it's trafficked. All right, so we have some are mules, and our politicians are not mules. They are just, they are involved, Trevor is saying, a few weeks ago, Air Peace, the direct flight to Nigeria, was shown to be a maternity ward with wings. Each flight had everyone, including the men on the flight, were giving birth as the plane landed. By the way, when Air Jamaica was in operation, and that plane was a plane noted for trafficking drugs, and it wasn't coming from ordinary Jamaicans for the most part, right? A lot of these things were coming from men up there, also before financial oligarchs. So we have to understand that plane was always, that was the sort of identity that it had for a very long time. Please share the live, because this is an important live. Thought that you would have been interested in. This is one of the most important lives, because we are going to be displaced. And sometimes we think only white people can displace us, but we are going to be displaced by some of our very own people. Right? Okay. Now, we have these things. Lately, the CDB and World Bank actually warned Barbados that its education system is not functioning at the level that it should. 70% leave school without qualifications. I think that, they've been telling all of us that, right? I think I hear say a similar thing in Jamaica and other countries. And I think, to some extent, some of it might be true. I have not done any research, so I can't refute what they're saying. What I do know, however, is that they do a lot of gaslighting too. And in the case of Jamaica, as we said, many of our graduates, as soon as they're educated, they leave. So if they're constantly leaving, then what do you expect? If you're not retaining your trained graduates because they have to go abroad to eke out a living, it means, therefore, that what do you expect? You're going to have the riffraff who are left behind, because the majority of the well-educated are leaving. That's not rocket science. So we have Darth Vader saying, wow, PM Holness will ban this nurse from any public appearance. Yeah, because, she stood up to him and he wasn't prepared for that. He wasn't prepared for that, because she really made sure that she told him that, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it's not the full story. Trevor is saying, people fly to places like Colombia or Cuba for medical assistance. Even in Barbados, people are leaving for things like dental assistance. The services are here, but priced for certain people. And I wonder too, if you have the equipment like in Jamaica, because you're under the IMF agreement too, I wonder if the IMF has put a lot of strain. Now, is immigration program coming from the IMF? Because the IMF is doing a lot of things now. The IMF is involved in climate change, right? So we need to do some research to if some of the policies of the IMF are also supporting this immigration program from Africa, because all the Caribbean countries seem to be doing it. Jamaica and Barbados are doing the same thing. And Trevor, WHZ saying, you mean Barbadians were entering Nigeria pregnant or vice versa? I think that it is the Nigerians entering Barbados pregnant, right? I think that's what is happening. Yes, remember the Chinese medical ship in Jamaica after Category 5 hurricane? It treated 2,000 patients. In Barbados, it treated 4,000, had to turn back hundreds more. Yes. Very interesting. And then we have, are you referring to the medical tourism? And yeah, they're telling us about medical tourism as if we have, if we have all the equipment to, to do this thing. When I look at, and people say, why are you talking about Santo Domingo? When I look at some of the private hospitals in Santo Domingo, I see better facilities than what we have in the Caribbean combined. It's sad that we are not doing well. Then we have, but I can hear. Good. Thank you so much, Marie, for that. Volume a little low. Yes. Well, hopefully you guys heard. And try to share the live, like the live, because this is something that we want to be people to understand that this is an agenda. This is not just something coming out of Miss Mia Mottley's. And you can't now go and hate her for that. As sometimes I'm seeing some of the other lives that you're on, and they're just saying Miss Mia Mottley and blaming her for everything. No, you have to put everything in terms of geopolitics, in the geopolitical context, right? Because everything is not just coming out of Barbados. Barbados does not control the world, neither does Jamaica. Yes, after so many were turned back, people, especially one lady, behaved like she won the lottery, complaining the medical system in Barbados expensive or wait time is too long. Thank the government for Xmas gift. Now, they complain about the same thing in Canada. Let's also be fair to our system, that sometimes we also beat ourselves, but if you go to Canada, I understand, it's also a very long wait time. The same thing happens in Great Britain. So, in terms of what we have here, it's not the best, it's not ideal, but it's not the worst too. Then we have WHZ saying the private hospitals in TNT are good, but not in public hospitals. Okay, good. And they have all the equipment, all the modern equipment that we can think about. Do they have them? Yes, it is disgraceful, because even our private hospitals in Jamaica, they're not that very good in terms of modern equipment. Steve Knight is saying these are austerity measures, right? Cut social services, etc. Absolutely. And that is, I'm happy you're saying that, Steve Knight, because we have to speak in the context of economic reality, political reality, geopolitical realities. Right? We can't just talk that it's just Andrew Holness, Miss Mia Mottley, and they are the demons, and we think that after they go, everything will be all right. And that is not. I remember going on the Marcia Week show some times ago, and I had to correct her. I said, that is not how, you can do a live, because they have to understand, your audience need to understand that this is connected. And it has much more to do with the Barbados and what Barbados is not doing. And this is the sort of discussions we have, which are very limited, but we need to understand that we have to look at everything from a global perspective, because there's a global agenda. It's not a Barbadian agenda. It's not a Jamaican agenda. It's a global agenda. Okay. Now we have David Furter saying the reason why some of these machines are deemed shortage is because private officials' business has to go on. Right. And then they go to America. They go to America when they want to be taken care of. Most of our politicians do not get treated in local hospitals, right? They go abroad. Let's begin there first. And maybe the nurse should have told Andrew Holness that many of you guys, the politicians, you don't stay here when you want to do some, an operation or so on. You are in Florida, you are in Miami, wherever you go. Okay, but not Jamaica. I don't know about Trinidad and Barbados, but certainly Jamaican politicians, they don't stay in Jamaica when they have to be operated on. Even the basic examination, many of them go abroad. So we have Trevor saying the government in Barbados gave a huge monetary support to a private hospital here, while the public is crumbling, but they are clearing, staring the public to pay or die. They are probably investors. Yes. They're telling us about, now they're not even thinking about investors. They're more thinking about, importing skilled laborers. It's almost like it's the same thing, it's the same. We are like now data, we're like objects. So you can transfer us, wherever the labor is, even when that is not our culture. Nothing is wrong if people voluntarily, move to another country. Nothing is wrong with that if they want to go to Canada or they want to go to Great Britain, wherever they want to go. But when you have a policy where you are sort of, it's almost like they're sending them there. It's almost like they're doing the same thing as Cuba does. So we're blaming Cuba. That Cuba is not, a democratic. They're not democratic. It's not a democratic society. At the same time, we're doing the same thing, and we're packing up our people and sending them over to far-flung nations because we're saying that, we don't have the opportunities in our country. Why? And why don't we try to sit down and create them? Now, if the Jamaican nurse is saying what she said, and she's correct, that the Jamaicans lack opportunity in the healthcare, the professionals there, why would the African nurses now, why would they be coming to us? Right? Why would they be coming to us? That's weird. We can understand why we leave to go to Canada, we leave to go to, America, because people think that there are opportunities there. But what opportunities are in the healthcare system in Jamaica as it is for you to be importing specialists in their respective fields? Doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe it does to you. Now, WHD is saying, however, TNT public hospitals do have equipment for CT scans. Very good. But the waiting time is quite long. Yes, you have not been under the rigors of an IMF agreement, the likes of Jamaica. The most austere IMF agreement in the history of the IMF, Jamaica went through. In the history of the IMF. No other country in the history of the IMF was imposed, with such an austere policy as Jamaica was in 2013 and right up to this day. All right, so they stole everything, and the social services there are collapsing, or have collapsed. Because if we don't have any CT scan, it means therefore that these things, the social services have collapsed. People are dying unnecessarily. Now, Stephen Knight is saying we don't need people to spread diseases nowadays. Correct. We don't need people. Right. Correct. They can spread it if they want to. Trevor is saying, yes, Barbados is too far gone. The IMF has its hand firmly inside their puppets, and the country is in infinite debt and social bankruptcy. And the same thing for Jamaica. And that's why the social services are going, and they're telling us now that we have to, import people from Africa because we are complaining. The locals in the Caribbean are complaining about IMF policies and the fact that we can't find any opportunities. So instead of blaming the government is saying, in the first place, we have the opportunities here, we just don't have enough labor. right, to fill these positions. And that is not true. In some cases, it might be true, but in most cases, that's not true. Okay? Now, Trevor is saying, I think the locals know that, hence why the voter apathy is unprecedented. Many have given up hope, but it's not helping the country. Correct. But unless they come on lives like these and they have these, what we call it now, transparent and honest discussions, and not just, casting anger on one politician and say, Ms. Mia Mottley has to go, or Andrew Holness has to go, or Dr. Irfan Ali has to go. And that might have its place, but you can't be beating that home every day, because that is ignorance, right? Because the system is not Ms. Mia Mottley or Dr. Andrew Holness or Dr. Irfan Ali. And hundreds of people listen to these, tap into these anger sort of podcasts every day, thinking that, the angrier you are, things are going to change. And it's not. And you can go and protest all you want. It's not going to change until we attack it by its roots, right? We have to look at the roots, and the system is the root. The system has to be attacked, not Ms. Mottley, not Andrew Holness. Those are just the symptoms. They are the symptoms of the problem. You're right. Trevor is saying Air Ganja, which was Air Jamaica, aka Air Jamaica, had a big scandalous history with Butch Stewart, right? The head of Sandals' name tied to it, but Sandals' history is told to be sold to that too, right? Sold to refrigerators, right? From rags to riches. Correct. He was known to be involved, allegedly, in some of those illicit trafficking thereof, right? Not a very pretty history. And we think drug trafficking is only about the man on the streets. We're going to have to wake up. We think diseases, as Darth Vader was saying, only is done through poverty-stricken people. We've got to wake up. So these outside forces who comment on our educational system don't live in the region. I wouldn't play into their comments too much. Correct. Absolutely. And but the thing about it is that our politicians live in the region and they are agreeing with it. And that's the sad thing, Stephen, that they're the ones who are also dispensing that sort of ideology, narrative. It's a huge business. Even a lady, DR, was not rumored to be giving Nigerians sections like animals. That's the minute they land, and making lots of money and directly tied to immigration. Wow, that's an interesting story. Never heard that. And as soon as they get their passport, boom, onto Europe. That's it, or the US, correct. That's the whole thing, because they're getting the passport as a link, right, to these countries that are, it's just like the Cubans, most of them will go to Jamaica or to Santo Domingo, and as soon as they get their visas, right, they're moving on. Now, you think the big countries won't put the brakes on Barbados passports? Right. They're going to damage Barbadian sort of, at least Barbados is known for, it's lawful people. People are not as, criminal. Barbadians certainly don't have that image as Jamaicans do, internationally, globally. When they finished with Mottley, it's inevitable. I think it's going to happen. She's saying that she will never allow any other country, that's Miss Mottley, to destroy Barbadian passport and the respectability in the world, right? In the world. But that's what she's doing. She's doing the opposite of what she's saying that she's not going to do. She's actually doing it. We have to research on IMF mandate they have for Barbados, yes, and for the entire Caribbean because of the world, because I think a part of that mandate is that perhaps we should have, we should move the barriers to travel. I think that might be, and we want to look at that. And also the Agenda 2030, right? Agenda 2030, we want to look at that too in light of immigration, because I think they're following a blueprint here. Again, for those of you who are joining the live, this is not just about Miss Mia Mottley. We're saying that this is what she's doing because she's the Prime Minister of Barbados. So evidently she have some responsibility for whatever is happening there. But we cannot throw the stones at her. She's just the symptom of the problem. She's not the root cause. Now, Trevor's saying, you're right, Andrew, but the other shows are only reacting to daily corruption, right, and chaos. They're blind as a bat to preparation, how to educate and protect themselves regarding the agendas, and don't want to know when you tell them, when you're trying to contextualize it, they don't want to know. It's almost like, oh, I live here, so that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, okay, you live here, but you live in a global village, right? And you just don't live in Barbados, or you just don't live in America, right? You have to connect what is happening outside of your border to what is happening in wherever you are, right? Z is saying it is the deceit. Caribbean politicians present a deceitful face to their representatives. Still, we need CARICOM more now than at any other time. The threats are growing too much. Well, CARICOM has been bought and sold, and maybe that's one of the other lives we should have. CARICOM is finished, right? When Venezuela thing happened, we knew that CARICOM was the end of CARICOM. When our citizens were being shot at, right, and being killed in the region, we understand that was the end of CARICOM. If they can't protect us, and if they don't try to even protect us, then why do we even have any confidence in them? Darth Vader said, yes, diseases and pandemics fly by themselves, no human needed. Correct. And that is what we have to understand. Now, Stephen is saying, what happens if we, as a whole, refuse to pay the slave debts? I'm just doing this question out to everybody. Yes, I've always thought about that, but if we don't, they will send the army for you. That's what they did to Jamaica in 2010. Not that Jamaica didn't want to pay back its debt, it didn't want to accept the austerity because it understood that austerity was going to demolish the entire economy. So Bruce Golding, the then Prime Minister of Jamaica, said, no, we can't do this because the country is going to unravel, right? And we didn't agree to it, and they sent the army in, right? So that's what we need to understand. You don't do what they tell you, sanctions, military intervention, right? Lots of things. Visas are going to be revoked, restricted, right? We know the game, right? We know the game they play. Now, Trevor is saying, to my previous comments on locals not having hope and not voting, that's one side. The other side of the voters are the blind celebrity politician followers similar to Obama who sell out and are rewarded. Correct. And this is a very key point you're raising here. Many of our citizens are sold out to our politicians because they accept. Only that there are two sides to the story, to Trevor, that sometimes, I don't know, in Barbados, in Jamaica, they will tell you that they're voting for you and they don't. So they'll accept your money and say, yeah, I'm going to vote for you, right? And they jump up and they go to your dances and your campaign trails, right? And they behave as if they're going to vote for you. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So I think the politicians also are, it's a risk that they take in paying for votes. Now, Trevor is saying, so the place is split, but both are in a bad place. Correct. And Darth Vader is saying, to understand the system is key. And this should be pinned. To understand the system is key. It's not to understand Miss Mia Mottley, even though we should understand her and but we should see what is she saying in connection with the system, the system's design, the system's objectives. That is what we need to understand. Welcome, Great One rather. Those of you who have not yet subscribed, make sure you're subscribing to the channel. You're hitting the like button. You should not be coming off here. We don't have 20 likes on the program, right? So that the thing will send out the program to as many people. So Great One is saying, come to think of it, we got to respect Mr. Holness because he let us know he's not a good person. But Mia Mottley using her big speech to play with her citizens, right? It is sad. This is the deceit. Right. So many Jamaicans think that Miss Mia Mottley is a great politician because she really speaks well on the global stage, right? And she makes some good points, right? Like her first video I played here, she made some very good points about the fact that we don't need to pay Great Britain any reparation, right? They're the ones who should be paying us, not vice versa, not the other way around. So yes, she has some talent there, but we know that she is closely tied and linked with the global agenda. Now, Z saying the Caribbean politician, irrespective of political alignment, ideology, nationality, must hold responsibility for not showing better leadership of Caribbean people, it is far more than speeches. Now, if you should talk to them, Z, and in fairness to them, they're showing good leadership for their class. I repeat that. If you speak in all fairness to the politicians, their leadership is par excellence with regard to the fact that, with regard to their class, right? The class that they represent. So they are doing what their class wants them to do. But yes, you're right that they're not doing what we sent them there to do, right? And this is now the conflict, right? And that's the conflict. Now, Trevor is saying hotels are some of the biggest money laundering tools this side of the world. It is true. Tourism is in general. Trust me when I tell you that lots of spooky financials never add up to the size of the occupancy. Yes, you're right. And I've always thought that, right? So don't even think that the people who are coming from Africa might not be connected to some of these financial oligarchs and are there to do whatever they want them to do, whatever their agenda is. But certainly the agenda is not for us and to improve our lives. WHZ saying the Caribbean islands are quite small and their populations keep growing. There was a hidden agreement for USA and Europe to accept some of the Caribbean people. It was population control. Now, this is a very good point you're raising here. Why? Because, you know, a month ago, Jamaica came out that Jamaica was not growing, right? That the population was not growing as it should. And all of a sudden, I think it was today, they're now reporting that the population has grown 600 last month, or, you know, or this year, right? How did they grow so quickly? How did the population grow so quickly when you said that the population wasn't growing? But I think, as you're saying, WHZ, that they're important people because maybe, you know, we are not procreating in the Caribbean region as we used to. Right? Gone are the days when one family would have 10 children, probably and more, 7, probably the average 6. But now people are hardly having children. So we're not growing at the rate in the Anglo-speaking Caribbean, I'm talking, not in the Spanish-speaking Caribbean society, because they have a lot of children. Probably not for Cuba, but for the DR, they have lots of children. But certainly in the Caribbean, in the Anglo-Caribbean, we are not having as many children as in former times. So maybe they are populating us with other people, like from Africa, who will be coming over to help with the increase in the population. So that's a good point you're raising here, WHZ. Now, WHZ is also saying, Andrew, we can't overreact. It's only 400 doctors coming to Barbados and the Caribbean. You know, that's a lot of people for these small islands. And, you know, one of the things to WHZ, I'm saying, I'm not against, you know, importing skilled laborers. Okay, far from that, because we are also skilled laborers and we go to other countries, evidently. So we, you know, it would be very, very unfair that we would be against, right, other people who are educated and skilled coming to our countries. You know, we have to be fair. What I'm suggesting here is that at this point in our economies are not doing well. And many of our people, including in Trinidad, when I read the papers every day, you have to cry, because there are many people who are crying out for jobs. They can't find jobs. They're doing the jobs that they ask them to go in, the fields that they ask them to go in, like medicine, you know, nursing, you know, the legal fraternity. Many are teachers, you know, all of the wide gamut of, you know, professionals that they see they want. And when they, having completed their studies, nothing is there, right? So how is it that we have jobs for other people when we don't have jobs for our own people? That's my question, right? But I don't have any sort of opposition to Ms. Mottley's claims of, and Andrew Holness's too, of, you know, importing. But 400 is quite substantive for a small island, the size of our people, and the fact that we have limited jobs, right? Even one is too many in some cases when jobs are not there for the citizens. Sad but true, Andrew. That's why I understood where Kamala Cesar was coming from when she sided with the U.S. instead of CARICOM. Yes, you know, they are, you know, I think CARICOM was just, you know, creating drama during that sort of situation. I think they knew they were on the side of Miss Kamala Cesar. Dr. Andrew Holness and Ms. Kamala Purcell-Bicester are not different, right? They're not different at all. But they pretended because they wanted us to believe that CARICOM has some amount of integrity, right? And they have differences, but they, Andrew Holness is not different from Ms. Kamala Purcell-Bicester. Unfortunately, Trevor is saying the people are so educated, they don't know better. They jump up for politicians and say they sound good, but don't understand a lick of what they say. Let me go back up here. Yeah, your life, their entertainment. Absolutely. It's entertainment. It's all about entertainment. And our people like that. And they hear the reggae music and the dancehall and the, what do you call it now, the carnival music, the soca, and then they jump and they whine and drunk and they drink and they think that that is great. And then they win and they, wow, as if things are going to change. And the same thing happens every cycle. Every election cycle, the same thing happens. Nothing changes. And we go back to the next election cycle. Trevor is saying to Great One, that's the hurtful part, and many people think it's a gold rush to bend over for her, thus creating this recessive mindset far into the future. Let the dead bury their dead. Absolutely, and I'm happy that we're coming, a few of us, to understand that Miss Mia Mottley is deceptive, and our politicians, not only Miss Mia Mottley, but because she has such a global presence, more than any politician in the Caribbean at the moment. She is the most popular prime minister in the region, right? So because she has that global appeal, that global audience, we have to expose her, because she's not only hurting her own country and the citizens, but she's also deceiving lots of people, millions of people, probably billions around the world. Now, good point on Kamala, yes. And then we have here Z saying, Andrew, their election to positions of power didn't come solely by their class. The majority of their electors are from the lower classes. If they don't fight for those classes, they're poor leaders. Well, remember I told you, Z, that our politicians are selected by the upper elites, right? So, for example, I don't know about Miss Mia Mottley. Well, Miss Mia Mottley is coming from an elite Barbadian background. But Andrew Holness, which came from the bowels of the working class, he was chosen from he was at the University of the West Indies. Many of our politicians are selected from them. They probably were part of some organization, like they were, president of the student body at the University of the West Indies. And from them, they say that person is a good person to become prime minister, and they train them. And then eventually we will elect them. So they are first selected by the monetary class, the oligarchs, and then they present those candidates to us, and then we elect them. All right, so we don't select them, but we elect them. But they are selected by the upper class and the financial oligarchs. Stephen Knight is saying, how much are these people getting paid? I don't understand why you just can't support your own people. Remember we showed Stephen Knight the other night, I'm not sure you were on that live, where we're saying the different categories of payment. And I think it wasn't Miss Mia Mottley who was the highest paid. It was the guy from Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali. I think he's paid over $200,000 per annum. And I think he was followed, I could think, by Jamaica or Barbados probably would be second. And I think she probably gets $185,000 based on that chart that I showed you. So they are paid a lot of money. They're paid lots of money, right? And that's why they don't regard us. They don't think we are at their level. Trevor saying, a Nigerian lady in Barbados a few weeks ago said she was promised greener pastures and she wants government support. Later that week, others were seen with loads of groceries, while many Bajans suffer joblessness. Yes, they're suffering, they're jobless, right? Right? This is the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm wondering if people are understanding it. And I don't want us we're not trying to give the impression, and may I repeat that we're anti-Africans. We're not anti-Africans on this platform by any stretch of the imagination. And we're not anti-immigration, because we are a migrant people, right? We go all around the world. You go anywhere and you'll find a Caribbean person, right? Because that is what we do. The fact of the matter is, what we're saying is that we want some more clarity right? And some more discussion on really what is happening, particularly as regards our people, that, as Trevor is saying, who are suffering. So why are you now inviting? It's almost like you have a home, right? You don't have any food. Your parents have limited food, and they're inviting 10 children to live in the home. Now, how are you going to provide for your children when you can't barely feed them? You can barely feed them. Okay, but you're inviting 10 people, unless you can live by faith. Well, if you're religious and you're going to live by faith, God told you to do it, then why? Well, do it. But we don't understand politics to be religious, right? Politics is not religious. It's not a religion. So I don't think that they're expecting that America is going to happen where Africans come and they can live in unity with the locals, because I'm going to tell you something else. If this does not stop, we could have ethnic warfares, where the Caribbean could become, a cesspool of racial and ethnic warfares right here in the region. And we're pretty much, we have our struggles with our different ethnic groups, particularly in Trinidad and perhaps in Guyana. But for the most part, we are quite peaceful. We're a peaceful region. And this could be our last stroke in terms of maybe it's the end of that too. If our politicians do not wake up and listen and hear our concerns and our pleas, our concerns and our cries. Now, Trevor is saying, you just said it, how is it sustainable? And between Andrew, loads of Jamaicans were involved in lots of crime last year and this year. Correct. And I'm sure, is it true that they want Africans and Caribbean people to be disunited? Because, they're saying they want to unite us because we're one. But if, you can love me all you want to love me, right? But if I come to your home and you see that, you don't have anything to support me, you might say, Andrew, I love you, but I can't, accommodate you in my house. Why? Not because you don't love me, it's because practically you can't do it. It's not pragmatic to do it because you can barely survive. Right? So that's what we're saying. But again, the Africans who are coming, they're middle class. And I don't know. It's a very, very sticky conversation we're having. We don't have all the facts. We also have to admit that, because they're not telling us everything that we need to know. So we're just looking at what they're saying and trying to come up with some sense out of nonsense, right? Or to make sense out of nonsense, if you will. Now, Z is saying it has been suggested that the immigration push has a hidden agenda in the form of boosting party support for elections. And that could be a reason. Yeah, it makes sense. Right? We don't know. We are not 100% sure, but it is plausible. Trevor is saying, and a Nigerian scam that looked rather rarely legitimate was going on recently, but the government did not want to call a nationality when speaking about it. And we know who they are, and that Nigerians tend to be who they are. They do a lot of scamming. And will they hack into your into your accounts and all? I mean, what can I say? I don't want to say things that might sound discriminatory, because that's what I'm here to do. But we have to look at the reality. We have to face the realities. And culturally, we're not the same. All right? We ethnically, we're the same. But culturally, we're not the same. And some of the cultural practices are going to have, and I know, if I know the Africans well, they're going to behave as if their culture is superior and their cultural habits, because they're going to say, you came from the motherland, so you should submit to our cultural norms, and not vice versa, if I know them well, having been around them for quite some time. Now, WHZ saying the Cesar is bringing in a lot of Indians from India into TNT, right? I prefer the Africans come to the Caribbean to be truthful. Well, what can I say? Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, right? And I perhaps see where you're going with that. And perhaps I would too, and so WHZ saying, and TNT is being invaded by Venezuelans. I see what you're saying. So, so 6 of one and half dozen of the other. Yes, universities are the recruitment grounds for the lodges. Most recently in Barbados from last year, January, the Freemasons said they have a mandate to be public and groom the young men. Yeah, notice that the Freemasons are coming out now, before they were private and they're secretive and all of that stuff. Now they're telling us about what they do. I see them doing that in Jamaica too. The Gleaner, they're coming out with stories about what they do and all of this nonsense. And people don't know the extent to which they're an evil society, if you will. WHD is saying it is stark how much the population of TNT has been altered. Yes, and all of our societies, whether Chinese immigrants, as you're saying, WHZ, or other people, the Indians too are coming to Jamaica too. Probably not in the same way they're going to Trinidad, because they have more connection with Trinidad than Jamaica. But you have a lot of Indians in the tourism industry in Jamaica. When you go on the north coast in Jamaica, for example, most of the art and craft, businesses are controlled by Indians, and they are recently arrived ones, not the ones that grew up in Jamaica, but the ones who are coming from the continent, from the motherland. Now, Trevor is saying it will become a divide like Guyana and TNT. Yeah, I think, what if they have Africans and Indians and other ethnic groups, and we're all fighting against each other? Wow, that's going to be a hot mess, right? Stephen Knight is saying, yes, all way of living will become obsolete. There was an article in the publication Rob Report about this in the early 1990s. Yes. And WHZ saying, I am not worried about the 400 that Mottley is bringing to the Caribbean. Let's see the facts. Yeah, I'm worried about that because when they say 400, it could be 800. And then after the first batch comes, I can attest to you that more will be coming. All right? It's an experiment. This is now the first step. And after they are settled, I'm sure, and they have refined whatever they need to refine, more will be coming. I can tell you that. I can assure you that it's going to be more than 400. Stephen Knight is saying they want favorable voters because your people are starting to wake up and to see the nonsense. Yes. Let me see if I could show another video, because we need to look at some of the facts as we go along. And I know I did have some clippings here that I want to show you. Nigerian experience and African experience. I think I might have shown this already. Jamaica for the Singapore model. They're telling us about following the Singapore model and the Dubai model, right? This is what Andrew Honus is saying. Oh, let me see if I can put him back up there.
Not just advocate for your position, but to have a conversation with your employees and your customers, to speak generally so that the entire Jamaica can understand where we are today. It is totally different from the 70s. Where we are today, Jamaica could become Dubai or Singapore, where if our economy grows, we might have to bring people in to keep the economy turning over. Yes, and can you imagine that Jamaica has reached that stage? It is how Cayman has grown, Antigua is growing, all of these other countries that have taken our labor to build their industries. We mustn't see ourselves as closed, insulated, xenophobic, isolated. We have to see ourselves as a country where people want to come and live, and we must embrace them. Get the crime down, get the efficiency up, clean up the streets, start the reinvestment. You won't have a hand to sell Jamaica. Look, the model of development and growth for many years has been how many visitors can we have in tourism? That model needs to shift. It has to be how many people can we get to come and live in Jamaica. So it's not just the one-off 5-day tourism dollar that gets circulated out of the country. We want people to come here and live and spend and hire and create and do business. By the way, that's Vision 2030.
Okay, so here again, we're seeing the Prime Minister of Jamaica, right, saying that this is Vision 20. Oh, I need to stop the thing there. Sorry, how do I put my... I need to go back on the stage. I need to stop the thing, sharing the thing. And, okay. Well, what's going on with me now to get back the... Okay, how do I think I could click on this. Yeah, okay, good. I'm back. Right, now, yeah, so the Prime Minister is suggesting that we're moving into a new tourism. The whole matter of immigration, skilled laborers moving to Jamaica, moving to Barbados, this is going to be the new form of tourism. In fact, they're linking it to national growth, economic growth. Right, so they're saying that that's the vision now, Vision 2030. So obviously we have to go back to the drawing board and look at the document of Agenda 2030 and to see where specifically they're moving us. But I don't think I'm encouraged to do that unless you will, because I thought many of you more would be on the live tonight, because the fact is that we need to study this. But I will do it nonetheless, because we don't know when the algorithm is going to change and things are going to be sent out there. So I'm going to have it as a catalog rather, and leave it there for people to watch. So yes, Trevor is saying, and many high educated ones are neutralizing themselves and others into taking that subservient position to Africans. Absolutely. So obviously the people who are coming here are not ordinary poor people. They are people who are bringing their money so that our economies can grow. Right, so if we're thinking that these people are coming are just some, small Africans with no money as tourism, yeah, it's not going to happen, because this is going to be the new form of tourism. We're now diversifying, as it were, the tourism sector. Now, Trevor is saying, yes, the Freemasons are taking full advantage, placing their order out of chaos into full effect. Families giving away, selling their sons to them for money and help. What does that do to the job pool? Yes, and the fact of the matter is that many people are still unaware of what the role of Freemasons in our society is and how they control our politicians, and it's not in a good way. Now, Trevor is saying, what everyone wants to be the next this and that. Why does everybody want to be the next this and that? Call it treason instead of so many other words, since you don't know who you are, right? Right. But what do you guys think about the Prime Minister's statement, Andrew Holness? Holness isn't hiding. It's a pity Jamaicans don't see who is truly their enemy. Right. Right. He's not hiding. He's saying that this is the agenda, that we're bringing them. And notice that his rhetoric is not different from that of Miss Mia Mottley's. If you listen to the interview done with Noah on that podcast, the clip I shared with you, she said the same thing, that this is a new economic engine. Right, the new growth engine of the Caribbean. This, asking skilled laborers to come and work in the Caribbean region. But this is a new form of economic growth that they want to, engender here in the Caribbean. Yes, notice he said he wants people to come there and hire workers, not promoting Jamaicans. He wants outsiders. That's the whole thing. Because isn't that what tourism is about too? That the people come with their monies and and they promote them. At the end of the day, when Andrew Holmes was talking about crime and violence, he was more, and we've been having tourists come here for many years. We've been having them here, and how many of them have died, right? And they're placing more attention on tourists than their locals. And Red Rose is saying, I hope the economy of the Caribbean grows. Now, it will grow, but will it grow in whose interest? Right? It will grow. So if you have these people who have money to come here and they aggregate the macroeconomics, you will see it registered in the growth, but it won't be growth for the average Joe. Okay, this is what we're saying, and hopefully it's understood. All right, any other questions? If not, then we can call it a day. if you want to join the live, I could send my what you call it now, my guest site link, so you can join and talk if you want to talk. Those of you who want to talk, because we are in for some very dangerous times, and I don't think we understand the impact of how this is going to, destroy our relationships and our everyday life. We've got to wake up now and see that our politicians are not working in our interests. We have to attack the system, and we have to expose the dishonesty. Yes, rob a tourist or kill one is the same outcome. You will be killed by the police, or he'll be given a life sentence, but your own is open season. Do your own what you like. And notice too that for the tourist investors, that they come and they get prime lands and they get a lot of tax evasion, tax whatever, and our own people don't get anything like that, right? So maybe these Nigerians are going to get all tax breaks and things that Barbadians and Jamaicans too are not privy on getting, right? So they're going to be treated better because they're coming with money. In some cases, I'm not saying in all cases, but some of them are coming with money. And some of them are coming to, improve on the population, to upgrade the population, to increase the population size in the region. Okay? All right, so any questions? Anybody would like to join the live? You can join. This is my the link if you want to speak anything and you have something to say, you can come and let me hear what you have to say. If not, then thank you so much for joining, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you so much for coming out for this live. Please like the live and share it so that other people will be able to understand what this is about. Before I go, let me see if I showed all of the major clips, because I did prepare a lot of clips here this afternoon. Let me see if I have everything on the. Good night, sir. If I have everything on the thing, yeah, I think that I have shared everything with you. I probably didn't do this one. Let me see if I have this one that I did not share with you. Let me share this one before we go. Yeah, let me see if I can share it.
About the change in immigration policies in the United States. There are many Jamaicans, of course, who live in the United States. I would want to reassure Jamaicans that your government has long been planning and putting in place measures to address any changes in policies in the United States. Firstly, let me say that Jamaica is the homeland. So Jamaicans all over the world will always be welcome back to your homeland. And we are prepared to receive all our hard-working Jamaicans who have been in the United States or wherever they may have gone for economic benefits. Jamaica has always been, since its colonial days to now, a net supplier of talent to the world. It may be a good thing to have some of our Jamaican talent return to our shores to help us to build our country. There are many Jamaicans now who are feeling uncertain in the United States and who are considering returning on their own to avoid the indignity of being deported. And we welcome you back to Jamaica. We want your talent. We want your resources. There are many opportunities in Jamaica that together we can take advantage of and build the country that we would want. But let me be clear that for those Jamaicans who intend to come back with crime and violence to undermine what we have been building here, let me be clear to you that this is not the Jamaica that you left 10 or 20 years ago. It is not the JCF that you left 10 or 20 years ago. You will either meet a judge or your maker if you come back to Jamaica and violate our laws and create havoc. I know that there are many who will be returning to Jamaica, coming back to lovely communities like these, rural areas like these, and they may attempt to set up gangs, get involved in scamming, and undermine the values of the communities that they return to. We will not tolerate that.
Well, he has said enough, right? He has said a mouthful there, and the Caribbean is changing. And, you know, if you don't agree with what they're doing, the police is going to, and the military will crush whatever dissent that you have. All right. And that is what Mr. Hollis is saying to us. So it seems some other Caribbean players are keeping quiet while they watch the puppets, but they are making some moves like the ones which is right by their people. Yeah. And Mr. Hollis was quite, you know, clear. Antigua just set policies in place to prevent the migrant displacement of locals last week or so. Hopefully that will be sincere. Right? Jail or death. Correct. WAC. It's jail or death. And I think that it's just more than, you know, it's nice that he's saying that he wants to protect the people, but is that his agenda? Or is it that he's saying that if you come and you think you can interrupt what we're doing here, right? It's not the same Jamaica, and it's jail, as you're saying, WAC or death. We're living in some very, very sad times, and we don't want to scare our viewers. But what we want people to understand is that we're not living in normal times in which the rule of law is what matters anymore. We're not living in democratic societies in which we can come and have open conversations that we're doing right here. Because you and I might not agree on everything, but what we can have on this platform, you know, we highlight people's disagreements and we respond if we don't agree or if we agree. And that is how we have to, we used to be like that in the Caribbean, but we have changed overnight and we're becoming more autocratic, more authoritarian. And right now it's frightening. It is really frightening what lies ahead. Trevor is saying Barbados is about to do a ferry. Yes, I heard about that as well, from island to island. And yes, the migration will expand, the crime and gang expansion. It will. And notice now that they're opening the way for us to, you know, to move around the Caribbean region, which is good from one perspective. But what they're pushing us into is this competition of joblessness, and people are going to be, so anybody who wants to get a job and they can, you know, get the least amount of money, then you can't say that we didn't give you a job. You didn't want it. So we had to go for a Barbadian, or we had to go for a Jamaican, or we had to go for, you know, somebody from Nigeria, because you didn't want the job. Because guess what? You don't want to be paid the measly salary or the measly income. Right? And tomorrow night, we're going to be looking at education. And is education that we're receiving now, has it failed us? Has the education system failed us? Because many of our young people are now going through universities and they're not going to get the jobs that they think they're going to get, you know, having graduated from school. Trevor saying, yes, they are equipping the police and military arms to kill everyone with no proof. That's what they're doing right now in Jamaica. It will be chalked up as you were breaking the law and case closed. A similar bill in Barbados is under heavy debate. So you cannot, very soon we will not be able to register our complaints against Africans or against Jamaicans or against anybody who we might not like. And it is your right in your country, whether you are discriminating, yes or no, to say what you like or you don't like. Right now, we have to be politically, you know, everybody has to be diplomatically correct when we need to say what we have on our minds. Because when we don't say what we have on our minds and we suppress these things, then is where violence now kicks up, you know. Because if you're suppressing my right to express myself, then I'm going to kill, because I have it in my heart, because I don't like that person. But if I can tell the person to their face that I don't like them, then sometimes it's a way to unleash the tension in the process, right? But our politicians are now quietly saying we have to agree with them. We must trust them and trust the process. They don't have to consult us about the process, but we must trust them with the process. And I don't know where we're going as the people, but it's not a pretty sight at all. We wish Miss Mia Mottley well. We wish all our prime ministers and presidents well. We know that they are constrained and that they are not the cause of what is happening, but they also have to accept some responsibility because they need to communicate. They need to communicate with us and let us know what the real agenda is. Well, we must say Andrew Holness to some extent and Miss Mia Mottley, they have communicated the agenda if we're listening well to them. But we have to listen well and we have to be attuned with the agenda. Now, WHD is saying Caribbean education is by rote, right? Memorization. The police are being militarized to shoot first, ask questions later. Just like what we're seeing in the United States too. Just like what we're seeing there. We're being militarized. And Trevor is saying that they are privatizing the islands in the Caribbean without saying so. That's why they say we should become like Dubai. We haven't discussed that, where Andrew Holness is saying that, we should become like Dubai and Singapore, but particularly Dubai. And if you and I know what Dubai is, we know that Dubai is not any country that we want to become. It doesn't even have a culture. Hey, come to the Caribbean, free land and fresh slaves, and you have custom benefits based on your color and status for half the price. Isn't it amazing how they can achieve their plan by, sort of mesmerizing us about our African identity? And we're all Africans and we're all Black people. And that is what is going to catch many people, That is what, just like the vaccines and the science and the science, caught many people off guard. It is a science. And now it's Black people. And we must love our Black people, just like we love science. They are cunning, they are cunning. Then we have Trevor saying no one will do anything because most of the troublemakers will be sent to jail, right, or canceled, or they will leave on their own, or they will be expelled to third country, Trevor, so you can't sleep well in the Caribbean, correct? Or you will be sent to a third country. Just like how they were sent to work here. If you disrupt the program, you might just be sent to a third country. What a poster that would be. Correct. We have Dubai is run with modern slave labor, right? And it's controlled, as Trevor is saying, it is a private corporate state. Billionaires who run that country and who own the country, as it were. And that's why it's a slave labor country. So that's what they're morphing us into, right? And we have to be very, very much on the alert. Now, Stephen is saying these politicians feel that they do not have to explain anything. Yes, and they have to be careful too, because they can also be taken out of office if they reveal too much. So they are revealing as much as they can, but most people are not so smart to know the full agenda. And I want to think some of them are not aware of the full agenda. Some of our politicians, they're also not very deep thinkers too, and they think that this is for our good and it's going to help everybody to live peacefully in a one world government, when it's not going to do so. So we have to pray for them too. Now, Stephen Knight is saying these people are actors, right? Like the ones in Washington. Correct. They're actors and actresses. Miss Mia Mottley is and Andrew Holness, great actors. And that's why I like the nurse in Jamaica who challenged Dr. Andrew Holness. And when he looked at her, he was like, oh, are you really saying that? And she said, yeah. Many people leave not because just for money, they leave because there are lack of opportunities in the Caribbean. And even if I'm getting a good salary, right, and I can't have access to good medical care, as the guy was saying, the scat, what is it? The equipment, there are basic equipment that are not in our hospitals. So if they're not there and I'm being paid a good salary, why should I even stay there when the amenities are not there, right? So that's why people leave. And they're telling us, oh, well, we have the job, but you don't want to stay here, so we have to go to Africa. to get workers. You're the problem. We're not the problem. You are the problem. Right? And that's what they're telling us. So I think our conversation was very good tonight. Excellent. And so we can go home now, knowing that we also left something for people to think about and to interact with, so that, the Caribbean can become more enlightened. Thank you so much for joining, and please make sure you come to the live tomorrow to talk about education. I would like to hear some of your thoughts about where we're going. Our young people are going to be in problem, and the fact that they're doing what they're told to do. Many of them are borrowing loans, right, at astronomical interest rates, and which they will not be able to pay back, and they don't have any sort of education that to buffer them so that they can pay back their debt. Steve Knight, this is Trevor responding to you, correct? For example, in Barbados, they do town hall meetings to consult with the people for optics, right? That's exactly what it is, for optics. Meanwhile, they already green light the project in Parliament. That's what they always do. Everything is for optics. They did that with flyovers. Good talk, yes. And you guys made the good talk, and that's why it's successful. And good night. Right, good night, everyone. Have a great night. And tomorrow, please be here for the night on the live on education. We need to have that conversation. See you. All the best. Ciao.